Good morning. Welcome to the Celtic Way Morning Briefing Live. It's Friday, March the 24th. I'm back. Indeed, Tony Haggerty at Haggerty10 on the Twitter handle. And I'm joined today by Sean Martin at Sean Martin TCW and Aidan Macdonald at Aidan C. Macdonald. Good morning, gentlemen. How are we doing?
Oh, good, Tony. Aye, yourself? Do you enjoy your day off?
I did indeed, yes. Did your wife have a good birthday?
She did, aye. Well, so she says, aye.
That's all you can ask for, son, isn't it? You know? And Aidan, how are you? All good?
Yeah, I'm good, Tony. It's good to see you back. Hope you enjoyed your time off.
Aye, thank you very much. It was good. I enjoyed it. But hey, I know it's international football at the weekend, but it's just not the same, isn't it? Not without the club football, without your diet of club football. But hey, we'll get through it as we've done it all week. And first and foremost, I'll direct you to the ticker tape running along the bottom of your screen. We've got a new offer for you, as you can see. And for the princely sum of £1, you can have 3 months of unlimited access to everything that we write on the website. And it's all for the click of a button. www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. That's www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. £1 for 3 months. We thank everybody that's already a subscriber. We enjoy the comments that come in the section and the banter each day. So keep that going and thank you. But if you want to subscribe, £1, 3 months, you can enjoy lots of top quality Celtic content. www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. And we say thank you also to SENECA. And as you know, the Celtic Way Morning Briefing is now sponsored by SENECA Medical Group. And SENECA are the #1 hair transplant company in Europe. And they offer innovative hair restoration treatments. And you can find out more about SENECA via the links in the description of this video. We say thank you to them. And now I'm going to hand over to Sean.
Tony, aye. Speaking of Seneca, Tony, that's not all they offer on this very day. Thanks to them, we are giving away a VIP ticket for tomorrow afternoon Scotland versus Cyprus match at Hampden Park. And all you need to do is get your questions in, as Tony was saying there. We appreciate all the questions you put in anyway, but on this occasion, you might win something for them. So the best one will be selected probably by Tony. And you'll win a ticket. Just fire your email address into the chat and we'll be in touch whenever whatever question gets picked. The only stipulation is you have to be able to get yourself to Hampden for the game. That's the only thing.
Excellent. So VIP ticket to Hampden for Scotland Cyprus tomorrow, and all you have to do is get a question into the comment section. Excellent. And be able to get yourself to Hampden tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good prize. That you'll enjoy that. They'll treat you well when you do the VIP stuff. I think I've done it once or twice, Aidan. There you go. So get the questions coming in, guys, as Sean said there, and you could be off to Hampden tomorrow to see Scotland's v Cyprus as a VIP guest, courtesy of SENECA. Excellent. Mm-hmm. Now, we're talking about Celtic, and we're going to turn the spotlight onto young Aidan Macdonald, who did the newsletter yesterday on the 12 loanees. Isn't that right, Sean? 12 loanees. And saying whether we think they have a future or not at the club. I wouldn't say they're 12 angry men, Aidan. We need to see which ones we're fond of. Hey, there's an old Celtic reference for you. All right, so 12 loanees, Aidan. You wrote about them all, didn't you? And you sort of kind of weighed it up and said who'll come back, who's got a future, and just seeing where they are in the state of play with the loanees. Now, if you wanted to give the troops a flavour of what was in the newsletter, they can also see it on the website today because it's in as an article as well. But on you go, young Aidan, take it away.
Yeah, so it was just kind of running through, obviously, how the loanees have got on at their clubs this year. Most of them sort of joined last summer. The teams we went to, there was also a couple that made the move in January. So just breaking down, their stats, etc., and whether or not they've maybe got a future at Celtic. As Tony was saying, it's fair to say there was some of them there wasn't that much to write about, but others there was plenty of detail you could go into. Just as a sort of flavour, so for example, Liam Shaw, who obviously signed from Sheffield Wednesday, hadn't featured a lot for Celtic. I think he's only made 2 competitive appearances. He went to Morecambe on loan. He's there till the end of the season. He's actually played the most games out of any of the loanees, 36 matches in total. And so he became a sort of key part of their attempt to try and stay. in English League One. I believe they're currently sitting third bottom of that league, and obviously 3 teams go down in the sort of lower divisions in England. So he's become quite an important part. It's definitely, you know, the most football I think he's ever played in a season when I was looking back through the numbers. So he's definitely seems to be one that's sort of grabbed his loan spell and taking advantage of it. Whether or not he's going to have a future at Celtic, that's maybe more of a discussion we could open up to. But that was sort of one I found quite interesting. Then, as a commenters I mentioned there, Toby Oluwemi, he's obviously somebody that Ange seems to have quite high prospects for. He was included in a few of the Champions League squads, and he seems like someone who a lot of the fans are excited about after his performances for the B team. Unfortunately, he's picked up a knock, so he's not been playing recently for Cork City, and he did, as Sean had pointed out to me the other day, made a unfortunate blunder on his debut, basically throwing the ball in the net. So that's a sort of kind of rough breakdown for each player that I've did. So yeah, in total there was 12. It was interesting. Some have done better than others. I think that'd be fair to say.
Get plenty of comments coming in, Tony, about them.
Yeah.
Charlie McGarvey's is up on the screen there, but we've also got a few differing opinions on Vasilis Barkas. Chilpal says the thought of Barkas coming back gives him the fear. Beach Boys just comes in and says nope, as in no, none of the loanees will make any breakthrough. And then Lanky67 says he thinks Barkas will return for next season because he's been playing pretty well for Utrecht, and it seems he's got his confidence back. And then he says fans just need to back him. Yes, he made a few mistakes, but it's how you bounce back. You get any time for that point of view on Barkas, Tony?
I'm with Beach Boys on that one. No, I think Barkas was just in the wrong movie, wasn't he? When he came at first. But that's the whole idea of the loan system, isn't it? To get them out, playing regular football, get confidence back. Now, lots of people are saying, you were talking about succession planning. Now, part of Celtic's succession planning, Sean, as we speak about often, is the goalkeeper, isn't it? And Benjamin Siegrist hasn't featured as much, probably, as Celtic supporters would have liked this season, and probably as Ange would have liked this season. You know, he got an injury as well, but he was featuring in cup games. But we've still not seen enough of Siegrist, have we, to say whether when the heart decides to call it a day or that decision is made for him, if he'll be the immediate successor. So I don't know. I think that it's all about perception, isn't it? And it's perception with Barkas. I just think most Celtic supporters would get the fear if Barkas comes back and he was to go in goal. And it's very hard to shake off that stigma, isn't it? I'm not saying he's a bad goalkeeper. I just think he didn't particularly do himself justice when he started out with Celtic, and now he's gone there to Holland and he's did well enough. But is it enough to convince somebody that he's got a future at the club? I'm not so sure.
Thing is, there's other facets, and James Daly would point this out robustly, but there's other facets to goalkeeper play that theoretically Barkas is quite decent at in terms of the ball at the feet, and even coming out and claiming crosses, he's statistically better than Hart and different things. But fundamentally for me, it needs to be married with the ability to make a save, and he didn't have that ability in Celtic. And some of the positioning, I mean, I know it became a meme, but that West Ham pre-season friendly was it was a meme for a reason. It was awful. Now there is an element of confidence. I know there's an element of confidence in it. But I think you're right, Tony. I think there is perhaps a bit of mud that's not going to be able to get washed away there. With his time at Celtic, and if he's doing well enough at Utrecht, I think you're looking at someone else to come in and maybe buy him.
There's too much negativity surrounding him, and I don't think that's what Celtic need at the club right now, Aidan, with regards to some of those players. There's just too much negativity swirling around that vortex, and it's unfortunate. If he was to come back and to get a try or a shot, I think the Celtic supporters would naturally rally around him and try and give them the benefit of the doubt. But I just don't see where he would fit in the system, even allowing for the fact that Celtic might need a goalkeeper moving forward.
Yeah, no, I agree with both of what you were saying there. Goalkeeper's such an important position. You can't really have someone who is lacking in confidence in that role. We've kind of talked about Joe Hart's issues or things he could maybe do a wee bit better, but I don't think Barkas is probably the answer. I know he's kicking, etc. stats were quite good, and he's obviously did well at Utrecht think he's got 8 clean sheets in 30 appearances. He's been getting a lot of praise from their goalkeeping coach, their manager as well, saying, that they wish they could keep him, but it's not within their budget. But I think the best case scenario is him coming off a positive season, Celtic are then able to sort of get a wee bit of the feedback. I know there's no way they're going to be able to get the 4.5+ million, 4.5+ million back that they spent on him, but if they could even get a wee bit of feedback, that's probably more than people would expect them.
Derek Crawford there, could he save a penalty? Laugh out loud, and I actually like this Alan Woods one. Going back to what you were saying, Sean, be able to, and I think that is, and it seems a kind of basic, not fundamental, but that was the problem with Barkas. He just wasn't saving the ball.
Very literally, it was a problem.
He was looking like a goalkeeper that was reluctantly put in a 5-a-side match. Not to say one of your mates, right, your turn. He's like that.
Can't wait to concede these 2 goals so he can get back at field.
Yeah.
Another Celtic reference. He couldn't have saved the ball with a pair of Kenny Everett hands. I mean, the brotherly love hands, for those who remember Kenny Everett, the comedian, and the skit that he used to do with the big foam hands. And that was that. And again, that's all perception now, isn't it? So yeah, I think we'll be pretty confident saying that we don't think that Barkas has a future at the club. There'd have to be a real kind of turnaround in fortune there, wouldn't there?
I mean, Peter Duffy saying that fundamentally Celtic need a first team level keeper to replace Hart, not another squad player. And then David Gillespie comes in saying no way back for Barkas in his opinion. He was on decent wages and he doesn't think he's any better than Bainer Siegrist from what everyone's seen. What other players then? Because I think that settles the Barkas one, didn't it? But there's 11 other ones there. Couple that like Toby Ulayemi, UNO2, that all right, they've got first team squad numbers maybe, but I wouldn't necessarily count them as first team loanees. You can maybe push them to the side for a minute, but I want to bring up Johnny Kenny, guys, because I keep an eye on him. I like the look of him. I think it's probably unlikely that, given the way that O has started at Celtic, that he is able to become the second choice striker. There's a couple of comments in here saying that he'd be worth a pre-season. He's actually on loan at Shamrock Rovers and their season's just started. Is that right, Aidan? So he's got some time there to kind of get some first team football. Peter Duffy was again coming in saying he thinks he should get a pre-season. The rest probably need to look at finding a new club. But what did you think when you were looking at Johnny Kenny, Aidan? He started well over at Shamrock Rovers.
It's 2 goals in his first 8 appearances, I believe, which is also quite a positive start. He had previously been at Queen's Park. I think we touched on it at the time. And that sort of loan spell that didn't really work out. Obviously, Queen's Park been having a good season. They're sitting top of the Championship. I think most of the matches he was involved in there were as substitutes. It was 1 goal in 12 games, I believe, overall. So he probably didn't get the most out of that loan spell. But the fact he's went to Shamrock Rovers obviously is back to a league he's familiar with, a league that Celtic signed him from. So fingers crossed that he can sort of maybe kick on. In terms of him coming back, I think when you touched on earlier, he's made such a positive start. We know how good Kyogo's been. It's a very difficult position to sort of force your way into, but he does have quite a long contract, doesn't he? I think it's 2027 he's signed up till, so he could be one that if he goes and has a really positive year at Shamrock Rovers, then as you were saying, their season's just started, so the way that runs, going into sort of January of next season, could be somebody that maybe comes back and is able to contribute, and as he does have a long time left on his deal, I would say he probably someday, it would be too harsh to say he doesn't have a future at Celtic, unlike some of the other players whose deals are obviously going to be expiring quite soon.
Another Irishman, Tony, Liam Scales, sending shots saying, will he stay at Aberdeen? Now, obviously, we knew at the start of the season, Jim Goodwin was vocally, really publicly keen on keeping him at Aberdeen. Jim Goodwin is obviously no more at Pittodrie, so it's Barry Robson as an interim manager just now. So I take it that's just a wait and see come the end of the season, but it really depends who their new manager is, doesn't it?
Very much so, yeah. I mean, Jim Goodwin made didn't disguise the fact that he was an admirer of him, Liam Scales, didn't he? And what you see with the likes of Kobayashi coming in as well, don't you? That you kind of think that would edge Liam Scales even more out the kind of first team picture. And with Kobayashi's kind of cameo performance at Tynecastle, you were nodding your head and purring and thinking, yep, if you have to come in and deputise for Starfelt at any time when Ange spoke about his hip flexor. You were thinking, you'll do for me, So, and it's no slight on Liam Scales. It's just so hard if you're a fringe player or someone who trying to break into this Celtic team now. It's very, very hard because we have now that strength and depth on every position, more or less, haven't we? And I just don't see Liam Scales breaking into that Celtic first team at the minute. So I think you're right. I think it's a wait and see who comes in to be the number one head coach at Aberdeen and deciding whether they fancy Scales or not. But I'm inclined to think that maybe Scales is just one of those unlucky guys whose future could lie away from Celtic. But then that's no slight in his ability. There's just better players there at this minute in time, isn't there?
I think so. I think you're right. The signing of Yuki Kobayashi, if Liam Scales had any designs on coming back as a left centre back, which is where he's mostly been playing for Aberdeen, albeit a lot in a back three rather than a back four, then the signing of Kobayashi come winter probably put a bit of a dampener on that for him. And I think it's very, very difficult to see him coming back and making any inroads into even a squad place. To be honest, I was saying that to Aidan yesterday. The strength of the competition to go on the bench sometimes is as strong as it is to get in the 11. And I think you might find Liam Scales, if he was back, would end up not on the bench a lot.
Agree with that.
A couple of comments coming in here, Aidan. Liam Shaw, Peter Duffy says Liam Shaw might be worth a pre-season. You were saying, I believe he's played more games than any other loanee so far.
He's played more like individual matches than any other loanee. I think in terms of minutes it is Liam Scales, but
You also offered a wee verdict on Liam Shaw, didn't you, when you put in a wee line saying that he made his breakthrough at Sheffield Wednesday in, is it League One down in England?
League One,
and you feel as if that's maybe the level that he's found. That's the level that he's going to be at.
Yeah, I mean, that might be a wee bit harsh when I reflect on that, but that's what I feel. Just the fact that started there and he was getting sort of good praise for playing in that division. Then he came up here, it didn't really work out. He also had a sort of loan spell the second half of last season at Motherwell, which wasn't the most successful. He's also went down there and played quite a lot of football this year, seems to be an important part of their team. So that maybe does seem like it could be his level. Given the sort of minutes that he has put in, I'd imagine he also will come back for a pre-season, as all the loan players will, whose contracts don't expire this summer. But the midfield's so strong, isn't it? It's all the players that are there, and just McGregor, Awata, who's also out right now, O'Reilly, Tatati, Moy, etc. Could be here all day rhyming off the names. So I think the best case scenario for him would probably be to be moved on.
That's a good point what Aidan makes there, Tony. And I seen a comment, I can't quite find it just now, but basically a comment saying, well, if the likes of Abada and Turnbull aren't getting the game time that they maybe want or the starts that they maybe want, how are any of these loanees going to come back and make any inroads into this squad? And I think that's a fair point, because I think I probably do agree with Beach Boys that when you go through all 12 of those names, fundamentally, I think my answer is no. I don't think any of them can make a breakthrough.
Yeah, I think that's my overriding emotion towards it. When you look at the names, some of them are just synonymous with the past, and the club has kind of moved on from that. So, and it's not that they're bad footballers; they were just, they just get caught up in the season that shall not be named, as you called it, Sean. And that can be, that can afflict players. That stigma, as I was talking about earlier. Some of those guys are, it's hard to turn that perception around, and you maybe have to go away from Celtic to resurrect your career somewhere else. But you look at those names and you look at the squad that Celtic have got, and you guys would have spoken about Mikey Johnston, but you're basing Mikey Johnston on a decent debut for the Republic of Ireland against Latvia. We all know exactly one of the world's best nations, are they? So I would like to see Mikey Johnston perform like that on a consistent basis. Can he? I think he's given his Celtic career a possible lifeline. But out of all the names, you just think Mikey Johnston at a push, possibly. But even then, it'd be hard to see him forcing his way into the team, because at this moment in time, there are far, far better players in that Celtic squad than any of those 12 loanees. It's harsh, but it's also factual. and they have to go some to force their way into that Celtic team, and you just don't see it happening.
Pete McGee putting his head above the parapet there and saying it was his brilliant comment that I couldn't find about Abad and Turnbull and how if they can't get game time, then can't get starts, how the rest of them going to do it. Aidan, before we move on in topics, anyone else from that 12 that you feel you need to mention, even disparagingly?
Probably if I do it disparagingly, I'll be Ayeti, I would say.
Right, okay, all right.
4 goals, 18 games.
He scored the other day, did he not?
He did score, Sean, yeah, but he's sorry, not I said 14 goals. There are 4 goals in 18 games. He's been injured sort of this side of the year. Since the World Cup break, he's had a hamstring problem, I think it was. So he's not even been playing a lot of football. So we can't even really say, he's had a full season and he's played the majority of the matches to get his fitness up. It's just that seems like it's not really worked out, to be honest. And I was somebody who, when he signed, I was quite excited about him. Watching those, I was done by the old YouTube compilations of him scoring for Ball in the Champions League against Man City, I think it was. But it's not really worked out for Albion Ayeti, and it seems like this loan spell he's had's probably not been as good as the club would have been hoping for as well.
See, the thing with Ayeti is, Tony, that because of the position he plays, if he finds even a modicum of form between now and the end of the season, someone will pay money for him.
Yeah, he's a goal scorer. People pay money for goal scorers, but sadly, the goals dried up when he came to Celtic, and they've kind of dried up when he's gone on loan. So it's a hard sell, I think, for a Jetty just now. You get players that just don't fit in. You've had World Cup winners come to Glasgow and they've no fitted in. So there is no slight and there's no shame in that. I get back to it that these guys are professional footballers for a reason. They're good footballers, but sometimes, they join a club at the wrong time, or the style doesn't suit them, the manager doesn't like them, they get injured, like Ideguchi, guys like that. For whatever reason, it just doesn't happen. And I find it hard to speak disparaging of them. I know I had a joke about Barkas, but I don't necessarily think he's a bad goalkeeper, but he was just casting the wrong movie, and the perception was that he couldn't save the ball. That's your job, innit? You've got one job, and it's keeping.
All right, Roy.
Yeah, but it is, that.
No, I know.
So that's what I mean. So, we could sit here and we could slaughter every one of those 12 players, right? So what? Big deal. But these guys they're doing something that we would love to do, and not making the grade at Celtic's not in any shape or form a slight on them. I just think that Celtic are in a moment in time with this manager, this squad of players, that are going to have to be special to get crash this team and to be able to fit into that system. And those 12 players, I don't look at any of them and think they're special. I want to keep them, but that's the nature of football. In the football business, it's harsh. Players realise then when you come to a club like Celtic, you've got to be on it, you've got to perform. And especially under this manager, who demands excellence, or as close to excellence and perfection as you can find. And some of them just can't cut that and can't handle that. And I guess that's reflected in the 12 loanees. They're out on loan for a reason. To try and also to try and resurrect their own career, maybe not at Celtic, but elsewhere, so that they go with the manager and the fans' blessing, and they can have a successful career and their confidence isn't dented too much, will they become a loss to the game.
Pete McGee comes in, touching on your maybe what you said about Barkas being cast in the wrong role. He says players have to have ability, that's a given, but what's not guaranteed is if they fit into a particular team or system. That's just the sad reality. If you can't fit in, you have to move on. Sad but true, which I think is a very good comment.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to throw up David Gillespie's before we move on. He says the only one he really feels could be an Ange player is Ismaila Soro, but he doesn't have the quality and discipline at the moment. And that's a throwback. I almost forget about Soro, but back the start of Ange's tenure, I said that a few times. I wrote it in detailed ratings a few times that I felt that the kind of constituent parts of a decent enough kind of defensively minded midfielder, energy, all that, well, the constituent parts were there, but it just wasn't quite welding together to become an actual efficient and useful player. I mean, I can't profess to have watched him as much as some of the other ones. So, but David obviously feels he's not improved, and that won't happen. Plus, Aidan mentioned the midfield. You are going to need, you're right, Tony, you're going to need to be special to break in every area of the field, but particularly in midfield.
I think the overriding factor with Sorrow was there was ability there. There was a nub of a player, Aidan, but discipline was a key issue, wasn't it?
Yeah, discipline was a key issue.
You know,
it felt like some of the games, maybe it's me sort of exaggerating slightly, but you were just worried as soon as he was on that yellow card, there was going to be a red soon after. I particularly remember Real Betis away from home. He picked up a sort of early yellow, and it was what a miracle that he actually didn't get sent off. He literally just got booked and he was flying into challenges all over the place. That, you know, it wasn't challenges to prevent a goal scoring opportunity. It was like the middle of the park. He was flying in two-footed, and yeah, he just didn't really have the discipline. I do agree with what Sean was saying. I think there is some ability there, but even this season, I think it was 6 yellow cards, 1 red card. So discipline's probably been another thing that he's sort of struggled with a wee bit. But he just felt like a walking yellow card. It was getting to the stage where your coupon put that on. You probably wouldn't even get that good odds on it near then because it was just so likely to happen. But yeah, he has. I understand. Like he probably does have some more ability than a few other actual loanees that have went out that we've discussed. But yeah, I think the discipline's a big factor why he's not going to make it at Celtic.
420 somewhere. Aidan says he totally forgot about Sorrow until he read Big Shafty's piece. I believe that's you. And just referencing what you were saying there, Derek Crawford said Sorrow was always a good pick to be booked in your bet builders. So fair enough.
Now, Sean, we're kind of 25 minutes in, 26 minutes. Do we have a comment or a question that we're leading the chase so far, or are we going to pick it at the end?
I don't know what you're thinking. I think I know it wasn't a question. I like Pete McGee's comment there that I put up, but I'm still very much open to any suggestions.
I like that too, which is why I flagged it up, because I thought that was quite a very good comment. And
there's also this one that is a question that I've not put up yet, but I'll just throw it right at you. I know where I'll throw it to you first, Tony, because you wrote about this, so you already know. Gordon Coney saying, question for all the guys. Before a ball was kicked under Ange Postecoglou, what were your initial thoughts of the appointment, and how far has it differed from where we are now? Now, Tony, you wrote last year some point a kind of mea culpa piece saying that you had your doubts and all that.
Oh, yeah.
And you kind of got ahead of the curve with that, and says, obviously, you're fully on the Ange bandwagon at that point. Anything to add to it? I mean, I can try and dig it out so that people can read it. But
not particularly. My reasoning for being reticent at first was because I was invested in Eddie Howe, because I thought that was would have been a really good appointment. And then Ange Postecoglou's name came up, but I did my research like every other fan, and I was like every other fan. I was initially sceptical, and then the 3 out of 7 wins, I was like, and I kept saying, you've got to win football matches at a club like Celtic. And after he won at Pittodrie, then he's not looked back, and he's won football matches consistently. So, yeah, I was sceptical at first, but I think a lot of Celtic supporters were like that. I refuse to believe that everybody was on the Ange bus from day one. I have no problem in saying but I was coming at it from a professional playing as well. I was really, I wasn't happy 6 games.
I don't think a lot of people were happy 6 games.
Because Celtic weren't winning. And as much as everything else, I was behind him because he was a Celtic manager, but I wanted him to succeed, but I wanted him to win games. And as I say, I was heavily invested in Eddie Howe. I thought it would have been a good appointment. So my initial reaction and disappointment with Ange was not so much him, it was because of what didn't happen, and I was being the pessimist, the glass half empty as opposed to half full. So I was more wrapped up in the emotion of that and the way it all came about. And then I said, okay, Ange is the manager, so what did I do? I bought his book, I read it, I researched him, and like everybody else, learnt a bit more about the style. That Hearts 3-2 game, I was thinking there was a half an hour spell on that, and I was like, wow. But it still finished 3-2, and you're thinking, okay. And then it kind of moved on to where we are now. So, and I wouldn't, like every Celtic support, they wouldn't swap him. for now. So, but I think a lot of people at the time were asking about Ange, what his background was and who he was. So I'm not trying to be smart after the event or wise, I say. But yeah, and I have addressed it a few times. A lot of people said I was very disparaging towards it. I wasn't. I was all, been 5-15. And a lot of Celtic supporters bought into Eddie Howe, and I was more annoyed at that process that led to that not happening, as opposed to the process that brought Ange in. So I was kind of like that, and getting angry about that. And then once I embraced Ange Postecoglou and all that meant, then I think everybody's like that. It's been a joy to watch, really, hasn't it? You know, since he came in.
Indian Bonesinger comes in saying it was Ange Postecoglou who, let's be fair. Is that something you agree with? I think on here a few times we've said, well, certainly I remember saying last year, whether it was pessimism or whether it was disappointment or whether it was just didn't really know who he was, that kind of thing. Despite the kind of heavy revisionism that went on probably around about October, November last season, most people were one of the above that I just said there. The exception, the honourable exception being a lot of the Australian fans and the fans from down under that had experience of him, who I'll always say they were very much in the know and very much were adamant that it would turn out like this. Maybe even down to the second season being better. They were accurate with it. Is it something that you agree with, Aidan? It was pretty much what Indian Bonesinger says at the start there, and everybody's on board since.
Yeah, I would probably agree with that. I don't think I was. Just to, obviously, for like the context, as we all know, everybody was very scunnered after the previous season. The way the club was being run, the sort of whole approach. Even I don't know if you remember, they released the sort of season ticket renewals before Celtic had even confirmed a manager. I think the statement even said we hope to have a manager announced by now, but we don't, basically. And then about a week later or whatever, the Eddie Howe thing, Celtic putting out a statement saying that they'd approached him and it hadn't worked out. So I think everybody was quite disappointed from that aspect. Very quickly, Andrew's name got sort of thrown into the equation, and I did sort of dive straight in. I watched the Asia Ange documentary on YouTube, and I did think, he seems like a good guy. We also need to get behind him, but I'm not going to pretend that I was, absolutely over the moon by the appointment, and I knew it was going to be an instant success. I definitely couldn't have predicted that. I was probably similar, really, to Tony in a way, and I would say my sort of most negative probably reaction to the whole thing wasn't even really the appointment, but after that Livingston game, the 1-0 defeat, I was feeling quite down, and I was wondering, to be blunt, I was wondering a bit like how you'd went from potentially maybe getting Eddie Howe to then a manager, is it going to work or not? But I'm more than happy to admit that I was miles off the mark, and happy that I'm wrong, to be honest, because I'm a massive fan of Ange, and he's definitely one of my favourite managers overall, really. So
one big question remains though, Aidan. One big question remains about Ange and Robert Gibson. Has anyone got to the bottom of that cough yet?
Yeah, well, that's true.
That's one of life's great mysteries, isn't it?
So I thought I'd throw that up, Tony, given that you wrote that piece anyway, but getting back to kind of matters at hand, well, I suppose it's not a matter at hand, it's just a general question, but Charlie McGarvey comes in. Simple one, will Stephen Welsh still be with Celtic next season?
I have my doubts.
I'd say no. I would say no.
Would that be on loan or a full exit, do you think?
I mean, I think given he signed a contract extension just before Ange came in, if I remember rightly, so he will still have a bit of time left on his deal. He might go out and loan. Maybe that could be the most likely, but I just think with the sort of players that are ahead of him, obviously Starfelt, Carter Vickers, unless obviously if one of them was to leave, maybe Ange would maybe look to him. But then if that did happen, I would imagine they'd probably bring somebody else in. But there's Ange, not Ange, sorry, there's Carter Vickers, Starfelt, Kobayashi, and then even really we've heard how Awata can slot into the centre half role if possible. Alistair Johnson also played that role a wee bit in the MLS, so I would imagine probably as options, a lot of them are ahead of him. So he might not leave the club permanently, but I don't think I can see a bigger role for him in the squad next season, to be honest.
2025 he's under contract till, Tony. Quite a few saying they can't see him staying. what I would say is the great qualifier the homegrown status.
Yeah, of course.
Of course, yeah, and that's a consideration, isn't it? But again, people are saying they could maybe get 2 or 3 million for him. Would you usher him out the door if you could get that kind of cash from him? I think Celtic would seriously look at something like that if they could, whether it be a long-term loan until his contract's out. They might want to look at something like that. But I think if you could recoup any kind of cash like that Derek Crawford's mentioned, I think that's something that Celtic would certainly welcome. Because again, getting back to it, I don't think Welsh is a poor player. There's just better players in front of him. Whenever he's had his chance, he's done okay. But he's a young guy, and if he was going to really fit into that system and fit the mould, you would have persevered with him, wouldn't you?
Mm-hmm.
And let him shine. But as I say, he's not let anybody down when he's played for Celtic. But I just think that he's another one whose future lies away from the club.
Yep. And to add to that, Aidan, pretty solid summation of Stephen Welsh's predicament.
Yeah.
Let's call it that way.
Tony summed up well. There's not really anything I can add to that. The only thing I'd maybe would mention would probably be, he obviously has had a few wee injuries as well, but all the centre half really have had, probably the exception of Kobayashi because he's just joined, but all the players have had a wee knock at times and they've sort of came through it. I think the homegrown thing, that could be the thing that has them in the squad for another year, but if that, if that situation isn't the sort of, I must say they do have enough homegrown players based off other players they sign or whatever, I would imagine he would probably go out on loan or maybe even leave the club permanently, because I just think there's too many, as Tony said, better players in front of him at the moment.
Just because it's international break, and we're getting a wee update from David Logan here. Australia 3-1 up in their match against Ecuador. Jackson Irvine actually scored the first goal. Former Celtic player Jackson Irvine. No Aaron Moy though, of course, since he pulled out the squad or was withdrawn from the squad with that back complaint. But on another note, with international break, Daisen Maeda, despite reports yesterday that he wasn't training, he was out of this game. He's actually on the bench for Japan today. So keep an eye on that.
Who'd have thunk it, eh? There you have it. Now, Sean, another topic that keeps coming around, doesn't it? Every now and again. European Super League.
Yep.
That's been in the news. I know the European Super League to me is like league reconstruction, Aidan. I just go, okay. Who's trying to call the shots this time? So take it away, Sean.
Well, who's trying to call the shots this time is a management company called A22. It's the European Super League. It's not, or at least they say it's not going to be that one that caused all the kerfuffle during lockdown and different things. But it's being talked about in the context of Celtic and Rangers today. Not by name, but because a report in the Daily Mail from the chief executive of this management company, A22, had said that it would be a 60 to 80 team multi-league format, so you'd get about 14 European ties a season, all that kind of stuff. But the phrasing was that there's a lot of domestic kings and less relevant leagues. So the presumption from that is that these people are talking about Celtic and Rangers. 60 to 80 team kind of open competition, they're saying, multi-division format and stuff. I don't really know where I stand on it until I hear it. My inclination would be, if it means coming out of the Scottish League, then fundamentally I'm against it because Celtic are a Scottish club. But I suppose we'll need to see, because Celtic or Rangers haven't even been named specifically. It's been the presumption because of that term. So I don't know. What would you think, Tony?
I would need more meat on the bones, as you say, as well. Whenever I hear these words, European Super League, Andrea, it isn't going away. But we've been talking about British leagues and all that for ages, haven't we? Celtic Rangers going down south. It's not happened. European Super Leagues, call it what you like. I mean, the Champions Leagues, as close as you get to a close shot Super League, isn't it? I mean, they've slanted that for all the big teams to be, or the richest teams. Funny that, isn't it? Cinderella story, slammed the door and you're cooking, you know what I mean? on the altar of cash, but hey, the men in suits, but don't get me started on that. That's another that's a whole 2 hours worth of cynicism, stroke journalism. But yeah, so I really, that's why I shake my head with these things. Yeah, and maybe it is coming, maybe it is the future. I get all that, and I know UEFA are lobbying for it, but I think you need to see more about what it entails, and the fact that they're basing the names of Celtic Rangers off that statement alone. It's not a massive leap in the dark, is it? But there seems to be something afoot because too many people are talking about it, Sean, and too many clubs kind of want it. But I'm with you on the Scottish League thing. If they have to withdraw from the Scottish League now, I don't want that. People are going saying Super League will never happen. Well, I'm 15. We've been talking about it for most of my lifetime. So, yeah, Michael Ross can agree with me. The Champions League is, so that's the way they wanted it. So,
Aidan Kaiser comes in saying he loves the Super League shout because it would mean a league arising to challenge the English Premier League, and he'd be delighted with that. It would also, he says, force the English Premier League to let Celtic in or be forced to compete with them directly. Where do you stand on that one? Do you ever fancy a move into England?
To be blunt, no. I just don't really want anything to do with the Premier League for a variety of reasons. And personally, I can't wait for the money bubble to burst in there. Whether it is ever going to happen, I don't know when, but I'm not a fan at all, to be blunt down there. I think the points you guys have all made there are very, very valid, and I agree with pretty much all of them. Celtic, the Scottish club, I think we should be in the Scottish League. I understand the Champions League is a closed shop, and it's probably going to get even worse over the next few years, but that's kind of your option if you qualify for that. You play against teams from other countries. I know it is weighted against any team that's winning the league in Scotland and qualifying, because you're usually going to be a pot 4 probably, maybe a best case scenario. If the coefficient improves, you might be a pot 3, but put it this way, you're never going to be a pot 1 or a pot 2 unless you were to win the Europa League or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that overall, that's your chance to play against other teams. I don't really want to be involved in a Super League in which games are going to be played. I know I'm not saying that's specific details of this proposal, Sean, because as you mentioned, we don't have, but just based off previous sort of inventions of trying to come up with a Super League, I don't want Celtic playing, Real Madrid at like 3:30 in the morning or whatever in Saudi Arabia. The time zones probably don't even link up there. I know they don't, because I've just, as soon as I've said that, but I don't want my club involved in something like that, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I understand, end of the day, money does talk, and if Celtic got an offer that meant they were able to add, an extra 70-80 million to their transfer budget, I know they're not going to turn that down. I'm obviously not telling the board what to do, but I just don't want Celtic to well, I'm in a way, but I know they would never listen to anything I had to say, Tony.
It says, I'm not telling them what to do, but don't do it. Don't do it. The other thing that was said in the report, which was, as I said, the Daily Mail's report, the chief executive had says, and this is the closest they got to mentioning Celtic by name, was that the analysing the situation of, for instance, the Scottish top clubs is comparable with other European leagues where domestic revenues are just not sufficient to enable them to compete on the bigger European stages. So you can see where he's going with that train of thought. You can see, as Aidan says, why it might end up quite an attractive proposition, but I just wanted to get your thoughts on that. Yep.
No.
I don't think I'm going to put this forward as best comment, but it might be my favourite one, Tony. Beach Boys right at the start. I've had it favourited since 10:10. He says, I've got a better discussion. Green and white Adidas Gazelles or green Adidas Sambas. He says it's Gazelles all day long for him. Don't know where you stand on it, but I'm definitely Gazelles over Sambas, even though the new trainers that the club's just released in conjunction with Adidas Originals are Sambas, and I think they are actually belters. But
yep, I've got a cupboard full of Adidas, it's my thing away from football and stuff. I've got a cupboard full of trainers, let's put it that way.
Gazelles or Sambas, Tony? Pick what one you had to pick.
Got Gazelles all day long.
Gazelles. What do you think, Aidan? Gazelles or Sambas?
I would go Gazelles. That's the sort of shoes I've
unanimity
in the past. Yeah, Sambas have never really been my scene, I'll be honest.
As I was saying to you off air, guys, they should change the name of them to Sam Daz, shouldn't they?
You get that copyrighted, Tony.
Celtic Daz are going to buy those new Sam Daz, I think.
Yep, Red Scotland saying
Sam Daz.
He's got Sambas on just now. No better trainer ever made for us footballing players. So Sam Daz, right enough. Peter Duffy says Sambas all day. Derek Crawford, Gazelles all day, every day. Again, I'm going up with them.
Yeah, it's. Listen, I think everybody saw the images, and you know they're always going to split and divide opinion. But I think there's more in favour of them than not. I've only seen a few disparaging comments, but most people say they quite like them. But I think most people say I like them, but wouldn't buy them or wear them.
Well, I mean, for me, you know, I'm a sucker for Adidas original stuff, Tony. So I quite like a lot of the stuff that the club's done with Adidas. But I do think that at some point, given it's a cost of living crisis for the majority of fans and all that, that it is just rinsing people at some point. But I know you need to make the decision to buy them, nonetheless. Yeah. But and that's, I mean, we're also
£80 for those who.
£80, £80, which actually still wouldn't get you that Scotland top that Scotland released last week. So earlier this week. So
you can, and then I think they're available from the Adidas outlet, Celtic Superstore, and JD. I think are the three places that they were dropping. So yeah, but listen, it's a good talker, isn't it? You know, it's like you asked Aidan O'Fair, didn't you? What the young team thought of it, the YT thought of the Sambas, and you said that your old man had already sent you a picture in the lead up to birthday soon. So I was like, we'll take that as a hint, Aidan, you know.
Well, I'm sitting there saying they're belters, and then Aidan comes out with that comment, and I'm thinking maybe I've migrated over that wee line there. Maybe I've just crossed it.
It's the big Celtic badge on it's just a wee bit too much for me.
To be fair, Aidan, that is my pal said that last night, that everything else about it, even though he's a big Celtic fan, he says everything else about it is perfect, but having the badge on it, he's like, I just don't think I would get them.
Would you have left it at the gold star? Because that's a more.
I think that would be a good idea, right?
That's a more subtle way of announcing that they're Adidas Celtic Sam Daz, as they're now going to be christened in my household.
Saying that, it's still like, I know that maybe people might go, oh, well, we don't really want to be walking about with a club badge on your trainers or whatever. But Adidas do like link ups with so many different companies and stuff. They've got Disney trainers. There's ones with Kermit the Frog on it and stuff like that. It's nothing new from Adidas to do that. So
and
it's not
a
badge on it. But there's a Stone Roses one as well. They were nice as well. But my pal did say that, Aidan, that it was the badge. Despite the fact he's a Celtic fan, the badge kind of put him off a wee bit.
Yeah, I just think it's a wee bit overkill with the badge. That's all.
Robert Gibson comes in and says he had Gola trainers growing up, worst trainers ever.
He bought classics, etc.
Yes, Gola. Well, I was a big Roy the Rovers fan. They were sponsored by Gola. So there you go. So, yeah, they had the. Do you know Roy the Rovers had to get Gola taken off the strip in the comic because it was like branded advertising. But Gola sponsored one of in the early 80s. In fact, I've got the top in my cupboard. The Gola 82 top. But they ended up having to be forced to take it off. Of branded advertising in the comic strip. It's an incredible story, really. But there you go. So it's all personal preference, but yeah, Gazelles all day long for me, Sean. If it's a toss up between Gazelles and
I must admit, I didn't know if it would be unanimity on here with it, but I thought you might go for Sambas, Tory, just because of the old Celtic Da thing. But it's Gazelles for me. Got a fair few of them.
Yeah, I was saying I've got a fair few Adidas trainers, and funnily enough, a lot of them are green and white. White and green, you know. But my wife says to me, "Are they new?" And I just say, "Nah, it's just the same pair of trainers." But she once christened me Imelda Marcos. You know, I was like, it's just every now and again a box with her eye, that she would just shake her head. And so yeah, but listen, if it's your thing, it's your thing. But I don't know personally I don't know if even if it's a trainer that I would buy, I don't necessarily think I would wear them out. I would just buy them just to own them because it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of limited edition or whatever. Is it a limited edition?
I think so. It would be.
You know, so I would do it for that. But they would arrive and they would sit in a cupboard alongside the other ones, you know. So it's
Steve McGrory coming in saying there was 50,000 people in the queue this morning for those Sambas, so it looks like they might have sold out. So you were one of them.
I want to know if Steve was in the queue for them.
Well, where else did they saw it? That's what I would say. Steve, did you buy a pair?
Yeah, want to know if you bought a pair of Sambas, Steve. Want to know that? But and I guess a lot of fans would get a kick out of wearing them to the football. Aidan, on match day.
Yeah, I mean that's probably like really their target market, isn't it, in terms of what they're hoping for? And yeah, I'm sure plenty of people will. To be honest, as soon as they saw are shipped out, I would expect between now and the end of the season, we'll see plenty of people cutting about with the Sam Daz, as you christened them, Tony. So yeah, I'm not surprised if that is true. They've sold it. I'm not surprised at that because as soon as I see them advertised, I expected that would probably be the case.
I'm a size 10, right? And there was a limited edition. The guy was selling them on eBay. Can't remember what they were, but they were a size 12 or 13. I think they were Italia specials or something, right? Like 60s leather, green and white ones are really smart. So I thought, I have to have them. So I bought them and I put them on and I wore them up to Mum and Dad's house. And my brother at Christmas was like, "What are they?" And I just looked at me and I said, "I think they're Adidas clown shoe." They were just massive. They remain in a cupboard. It's just like worn once and once only. But, yeah, so that's kind of what it makes you do.
Pete McGee says this chat needs a spin-off podcast of its own, Shoe Talk with Sean, Tony and Aidan. Steve McGrory says he was in a queue, but he failed to get them. But by his reckoning, that's about 400,000 into the club. Presumably split with Adidas and the retailers, but still, good money maker for them. Even though, as I say, at some stage, I just think it's maybe rinsing people. But
yeah, I think that £80 is a lot of money for people in this day and age for a pair of trainers. I'm consciously aware of that. So, and again, it's a personal choice, isn't it?
I like this, by the way. Pete McGee's come up with a belter of a title for the spin-off. Northern Soul. I like that. And Kirsty O'Connor says, this is why TCW is the best. Nothing to do with the in-depth, deep dive analysis. Nothing to do with the big interviews. Nothing to do with all the newsletters. It's this. Talking about
because we go off at various Celtic tangents. Isn't that right, Aidan?
This is the sort of content they all tune in for, guys. Honestly.
Of course. Because it's irreverent, and as we always say, we don't take ourselves that seriously. We take the football seriously, take our deep dive, our big interviews and our analysis seriously, but something like this we like to have a bit of fun with, don't we?
Yeah, I think so. And speaking of having a wee bit of fun, whether you think going to a Scotland game would be fun or not is up to yourself. But Tony, there's a few comments that I've favourited. Have you got a standout one? The two I suggested earlier on doesn't need to be them, but it's Pete McGee's one about ability and the sad reality, which was a comment rather than a question. And for questions, Gordon Coney's about Ange's perception at the start compared to where we are now. Those two stick out for me. Is there any others that stick out for you? And if not, what one are you going with?
Oh, am I getting the casting vote? So...
Well, unless you want to throw it to the youngster and put him on the spot.
I don't like pressure, so I'm
so, you giving it dun 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 dun. I think it's between those two, isn't it? If either or can make it to Hampden, they'll enjoy a wonderful day out. It's a toss of a coin job, to be honest. Mm-hmm. One's a bona fide question, one's a statement, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So. And I kind of try to be the diplomat and the politician here, and try.
Is that when you're putting it to NATO? Is that what that means?
I would say that we've narrowed it down to those two, so I think we should all have a.
Right, all right. My preference is
and a prediction, because I think it's only fair. And a prediction, the way we would do a prediction show.
Right, all right. My preference with the two of them would probably be probably be Pete McGee's comment. I know it wasn't a question, but I liked it. It was just a really well thought out comment and quite thought provoking. Aidan, what one you?
My preference, I'm not actually doing this to be dramatic, my preference would actually be the Ange comment, just because
right, Tony. He's done you there, Tony, right? What you picking?
It prompted good discussion, I should say, that as well.
Very good point, Aidan. Tony, what you picking?
I think I'm going to strangle him. I have to be honest, I'm going to side with young Aidan, because I thought that was a good question and it was provoked a good debate. And I think can always go back to that and, see where you were with Ange when he initially came in. I think Gordon Coney, and I've addressed it many times, and I will continue to address it many times going forward, because we'll always come back to the kind of timeline with Ange and how it felt at the start. But I just think that everybody, has had their thoughts when he came in, and it'll have changed. It'll have drastically changed by now, or else it'll be. I don't think it'll be consistent. Let's put it that way. Certainly.
So, Gordon, if you're still on, hopefully, get your email address into the comments, and one of us will be in touch with you and how to get your tickets for the Scotland game and different things. Your ticket, one ticket. And I suppose that means if Gordon can't make it for any point, then Pete McGee gets offered it. Is that right?
If Gordon can't make it, of course it goes on to Pete McGee. I think that's only fair. So it's and I like that question. I've got to be honest. But I like Pete McGee's statement as well. That contributed to the debate, and that's why we do what we do on here. We like to involve them, and that's why we get good questions and decent interaction, because they're a knowledgeable bunch, and also even when we get flippant and we talk about Adidas and stuff like that, they chime in with their thoughts on things like that. So today's been very enjoyable. But yeah, if Gordon can make it, fine. But if he can't make it, Pete McGee's the man.
Okay, dope. So Gordon, as I say, email address either in the comments or even just email one of us, and we'll try and get you sorted.
Excellent. Well, all it remains for me to say is just divert your attention once again to the new offer that's running along ticker tape at the bottom. Subscribe to the Celtic Way website and support top quality football journalism covering the club you love. We even talk about trainers and shoes and all sorts, don't we? And it costs you £1 for 3 months of unlimited access to everything that's written on the site. And all for the click of a button, guys. www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. And we also say thank you to SENECA, and Gordon's going to enjoy a VIP day out at Hampden tomorrow for Scotland versus Cyprus. But the Celtic Way morning briefing is now sponsored by SENECA Medical Group. SENECA are the #1 hair transplant company in Europe, and they offer innovative hair restoration treatments. And you can find out more about SENECA via the links in the description of this video. Guys, that's been nearly an hour. Top chat, great laugh, excellent stuff. Thanks to everybody who's contributed in the comments. Have a fabulous Friday. These are the days when I always say your weekend's result dependent. Can't say it this week, really, can I? And everybody's champing at the bit for their diet and fix of club football. But yeah, here's hoping Scotland can win. If you're supporting Scotland and you're that way inclined, here's hoping that Calmac comes through unscathed, and all the international representatives representing their respective countries come through all unscathed and report back for club duty next week unharmed. But whatever you're doing, have a wonderful weekend. There is, Sean, the Legends game, isn't there, at Anfield?
There is, Liverpool Legends, Celtic Legends, yep.
Yeah, Paul Lambert.
But you can watch that for free on the Liverpool YouTube channel.
Yes, that's we're going to flag that up. You can, if you're wanting any kind of Celtic fix, you can get that Liverpool game. I think it's on the Liverpool YouTube channel, isn't it? Yeah. So, yeah. So a few legends playing for Celtic team. Paul Lambert, the manager. But guys, thanks very much, Aidan. Thank you for the loan update. That was excellent. And thanks for putting me right on the spot. By giving me the
That's the revenge, Tony, for the shaft.
That is revenge, isn't it? It was a dish best served cold, isn't it? Sean, thanks as always, first class. Take care, guys. Have a wonderful weekend.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.